Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. The time is 3:13 PM, and I'm calling the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Contract into order. Can you please do the roll?
Yes. Comptroller Morton,
Present.
Council President Brown,
Here and remote.
thank you, Mayor Patterson Howard.
Here. And I just want to reiterate, this is a regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimate and Contract. I saw it reported on the news that we were having a special meeting today to discuss the budget. This is the standard business of the Board of Estimate and Contract, just for clarity. Thank you.
Number one, Department of Public Works and ordinance authorizing the purchase of downtown traffic receptacles for business districts.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
So on a question about this, the procurement,
They got quotes and it's gonna be under 20,000.
under 20,000.
whereas the total cost of the purchase shall not exceed $20,000.
1,000 and some change.
And the three quotes.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, it's not getting past the council. Procurement hasn't been met.
My referral session.
First, put verify.
I
You know,
Right, Judge?
I'm laughing because, you know, the partial author of the procurement policy.
Trust
We
verify.
have meetings with the procurement manager, with the deputy commissioner. We worked on this.
Yes, all righty.
But make sure it doesn't go over, that's all. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye, and while we have absolutely put in a request for, you know, a directive for people not to spend unnecessarily, you have to have garbage cans. If not, then we will just spend extra money on
Cleanup.
rodent infestation and cleanup. And so this is a necessary cost. It says in here that several of our cans that are out there have been rusted out due to weather. And so this is a necessary purchase at this time.
Hopefully they have, they'll be bolted in.
Yeah, if people will stop stealing the garbage cans, we would appreciate it.
Number two, Department of Public Works and ordinance authorizing the issuance of an invitation for bids, RFP number 11.25 for the one-time removal and disposal of construction and demolition C&D debris at the 33rd Canal Street trash.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, this is part of the New York State DEC order. I believe a lot of this is still the C&D debris from Memorial Field that was moved over while other C&D debris was disposed of. And it is also, you know, part of causing a brownfield down in that area. But I just wanted everyone to know that this is part of Old Memorial Field waste.
And so, okay, and so once this comes back, how is this getting up to the budget line for it? Is this something that's coming out of
Well, I mean, this is just the request.
I know, but once it comes back, then there's the issue of, right?
Well, once it comes,
Contract. And my question is where is the funding gonna come from for this? What was the intent?
we kind of
Is
have to
it
get,
operational money or is it grant or something?
well, we'll have to understand what we're looking at, right? So we don't have to award it right away, but we do have to have an idea of what the cost is gonna be.
No, I get that, but at this point, I'm looking for funding source, not about the amount.
Right. There is no funding source listed in here because it's really right now just a request for bids.
And what we've done historically with some of these bids is if we're not sure where the funding is coming from, before the contract is awarded, the source is identified. So we've done that historically.
Okay, we just, given our tight, we may have to change the process. This one, at least have some idea, right? Otherwise, we're gonna be wasting time putting out bids. We don't have money to do it.
Well, the bid will also provide us with an opportunity to make a request to the state if we can use some of the other funding that we have around environmental issues to do this, or it helps us to know if it can fit in the budget or if we need to go out for some type of special funding, but we won't know if we don't have an idea of what this is going to cost us. So no, we absolutely cannot enter into any contract until we identify a funding line. But having an idea of what this is going to cost us in advance will assist us in moving forward.
Okay.
All right, roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
No.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 3, Department of Recreation, an ordinance retroactively authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Westchester Board of Legislators to provide funding for the 2025 summer basketball camp and amending the city budget accordingly.
So moved.
Second,
On the question,
isn't this grant already included in the budget? Or is this another one? Because there's already money that was,
It said retroactively. So
Yeah.
Probably came in already.
well, I see
Oh,
the year to date in the budget, but I don't
What's the budget?
think
but
this is in the budget.
The adopted 2025.
it already.
Yeah, from July
Hmm.
to August 31st.
Adopted 2025 was nothing,
Right.
but it's in the 2026 budget. Okay. So it is amended. Okay.
Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 4, Department of Buildings, an ordinance authorizing budget lines.
Okay.
Oh, no,
I think this has to be held. Because I don't know how we're transferring money from a revenue line into a revenue line. And my understanding is that the assistant comptroller had this discussion during the prep meeting.
Correct.
So I don't know how this made it onto the agenda. Because
They were
you
notified.
can't transfer money to another revenue line to make up for a deficit supposedly of a revenue line.
So, I think the letter is also misleading, right? They said a negative balance.
Right.
And there's no negative balance, right? So, I guess even before the referral meeting, I'm trying to figure out why this letter was submitted.
It came up in referral, and they were notified by my office.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just trying to figure out but it made it, okay.
No, I agree. So I think in the future, right, if this is an issue with an agenda item, it needs to be addressed before it actually makes it to the agenda. Because from my reading of this, I thought these were expenditure lines. I don't have the account codes memorized.
Yeah.
Did he make that call?
Well, yeah, I mean, My understanding, right? So in the prep meeting, when there's a discussion, I mean, especially if Condell has said this cannot go, then it gets returned back to them. Right? It has to get returned back to them from there that is an inappropriate submission before it gets, because it shouldn't get to the council's agenda at all. They can then, at that point, if they have any questions, which your directive probably is if you have any questions about that, because my office said it, go talk to the comptroller. And we would just clarify it, so. You can take it and vote no if you want, but
Oh, we could hold it, right?
Yeah, I
you can
think
hold it, it's not gonna come back, right?
Call for it?
No, it needs to be held. It needs to be amended, or it not exist actually.
It has to be fixed.
Okay.
Okay.
I know there was an issue and so I'll drill down into this more. I know on big projects, they had received money into one line and never attributed it to the individual lines. And they wanted to make that correction. But, that's not a transfer of funds. It's kind of more just an amendment,
Correct. What would happen if what you're saying is true, right? What would happen is that they would then have to then submit a amended cash report,
Mhm.
right? To the comptroller's office, to the finance office. And that would then make the difference for them to go in and do the entries
Mm.
to change it from one code to the other because the cash report had a listing of revenue lines on it that it got applied to, right? And now it was just a mistake. It needs to be changed. That's all. But you don't transfer,
Right.
especially in revenue line.
Right. So I know that there was a big project or a few big projects and there was one fee, but really there are sub fees. There's money for electrical, mechanical, HVAC, things of that nature, plumbing. And going forward, I told them to definitely make sure when those monies come in, that those are attributed to the right lines because that's how it's budgeted. And we want to make sure that those lines reflect properly the revenue that comes into them instead of having, major projects be ahead of budget and the other lines be short of revenue. So yeah, an amended cash report would do it. This is not. It.
Yeah, amended cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so this is gonna be held. All right. Number 5, Department of Buildings and Ordinance to establish a list of qualified vendors for third-party inspection services for the Department of Building.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
this is just establishing a list.
Mhm.
No contract. Outside people.
Yeah, and it's not just for us. It's, so that they can put up a list of people who have been vetted.
Vetted, yes.
Okay. Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson House,
Aye.
6, Fire Department, an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a $95,000 grant for the purchase of a replacement compressor for the fire department.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
He said that quick. You don't have any on the question?
No, I'm good. Any money coming in, it's fine.
I can't say on the question, you better say it.
Oh,
Oh.
I thought I said on the question, he just started saying. Okay. Roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard,
Aye, and I want to thank our Assemblyman, Gary Pretlow for this award. This compression machine allows for the fire department to refill their self-contained breathing apparatuses, their SCBA tanks. And so when they're on the scenes of very long fires, like they experienced about a little more than a week ago, we've traditionally had to get another department to come over and be on site to refill their tanks, and this will allow us to have this in our city now. It's not on a truck, but they will have it in the station houses. So thank you.
Number 7, Department of Buildings, an ordinance authorizing the city comptroller to establish a custodial account for the development project located at 115 McQuestion Parkway.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
So do we anticipate that there's gonna be anything else? Just so I understand, just to know how we want to set this up, right? But if right now it's specific to a particular thing, do we think that there might be something else that may come so that we would just open up the account as the project itself and not specific to what's happening?
I think it should be specific to what is happening because this is the account where they are paying out for a specific service, right? So it doesn't also include like legal fees and those things as well. This is supposed to be for a specific service.
agreed. Roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 8, Real Estate Committee, an ordinance rescinding the recommendation for the sale of city-owned property located at 328 South First Avenue, parcel ID. Belong Nikchi of Bedrock Company.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Number 9,
Number
So-
9, yeah, I think we should actually call for this. We have a discrepancy that we need to get resolved before we vote on this.
Real Estate Committee, an ordinance authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 146 South 13th Avenue, Mount Vernon, New York, to Mrs. Jeanette Garcia for the purchase price of $200,000.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
11, City Council, an ordinance authorizing the transfer of funds to budget line A 10.405, contracted outside service.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
12, Office of the Comptroller, an ordinance authorizing a temporary spending freeze on non-essential expenditures from February 2026.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Hearing none, roll call?
Comptroller Morton,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye.
Here that concludes the agenda.
Okay. Anything else for the agenda? I know last night we did have our Board of Estimate and Contract public hearing for the budget. When the budget was initially, the draft annual estimate was initially put forth at our last meeting. The rate was 6.09. After that, just last week, we did receive communication from, do you want to explain that part? Both the state retirement fund, that there was an additional 400 and some odd $1,000 adjusted to the retirement bill. And then on our debt service, principal was coming due this year, and that added an additional 900,000 and change, bringing it to about $1.4 million that needed to be added to that budget. We have continued to make adjustments, seeking to bring the tax rates down. Hopefully, we will be able to come before you within the next day or two with some reworked numbers to bring forth a more reduced tax rate. Really, the major thing that is driving the increase in taxes, as we stated last night at the meeting, is not an increase in salaries. It is not an increase in operation spending for equipment, for travel, for anything of that nature. All of those expenses have actually been decreased below our salary numbers for 2026 are less than our salary numbers for 2025. Even our operations, the two numbers that drive almost $7 million of expenses, or several million, I don't want to say seven, because I'm going to be exact, but several $1 million of expenses is about 3.6 or $7 million of additional retirement and an additional almost $2 million in or more in debt service. So that is the major challenge that we are having right now. We are combing through every revenue line. We are combing through every expense line, including our appropriations, looking to see where we can reduce the burden. We are taxpayers and homeowners, and no one wants more taxes. And so we are trying to find a way to bring reductions. I wish it was as easy as most people thought. We can cut out entire departments, but I don't know if that would also be the best interest for the city, but we will continue to work on it. You have any comments?
Yeah, I do, actually. So I think everything you said is accurate. We've been working very hard to figure out where we could make the changes, right? So one of the things that I am proposing, suggesting that we do is that for 2026, that we actually do operate off of a austerity budget with some clear policies, right? And procedures that will have to be put in place, right? We've had a number of conversations all throughout this year around monitoring revenue, the need for making sure revenue comes in. We've had discussions also throughout this year about certain lines, particularly things about how do you better manage overtime as well. And so yesterday, while we talked about the revenues and the need for revenues coming in, also the public also articulated about spending. And my comment about the revenue is not to take away from the need that we absolutely have to manage our expenditures. And that's something, because you need to do both on both ends, right? However, if we look at where the expenditures really are for the last year or so, year and a half or so, they're not that far out. They're not far out of whack based upon what we've budgeted. But then again, if you don't bring in than what you'd expect, then of course you got to do budget mods. So what I think is going to be best for us next year is to have a better system of managing, right? And the mayor and I have had this discussion about possibilities of even a budget committee internally, so on and so on. Well, I don't know if we need to reinvent the wheel, right? I think that we have this body that is responsible for approving finances and trying to manage it. So what in my brainstorm last night, and I haven't etched it all out, but is for us to, one, have this austerity budget for 2026 that comes along with, here's what the budget is that's adopted. And here are kind of the policies around it, but also looking at areas like travel, membership, training, and equipment, and pulling it out of the departmental budgets and placing it here. Right? And having a better way of, and having the council then adopt a policy and procedure that says this is how you submit for those things so that we can better kind of keep our eye on it, right? And have the representation, of course, of the council by having the president on, the mayor and myself, and then we can add whoever we need to be a part of the operating around that. And pull in the purchase / procurement manager as a place where they kind of submit, have a whole process for how you submit that. So that we can manage what is happening as it pertains to what is the needed travel. Because we do know that there's going to be there's some things we cannot just not travel, right? In certain places. However, because there's certain things that the council, the mayor, and the comptroller in particular are going to have to do. But there's also certain training things that fire, police,
Building
OEM,
department,
and your building department are going to have to do. Youth Bureau is a little different because most of this stuff is
It's
related to their
reimbursed.
grants, right?
Perhaps it's
Right,
reimbursed.
but
But I just wanted to put that out there
but it at
because
least
not all
gives
travel is
us
paid
the
for by the city.
opportunity for us to be able to really at this level kind of manage it and really monitor what's happening so that in 2027, we'll have a real clear understanding of what we could put back into the department budgets, right? That's number one part. The second part of it is, right? Well, you said one, pulling it out, because when we pull it out, we can also do something with that number that helps with the tax rate, right? The other thing is the other area, and I haven't fully thought it through, but we do have to become a little bit more oversight directly. And that's overtime, right? And how overtime is allocated, how it is monitored, and how it is actually monitored, right? In the departments. Because when we look at our lines historically, that is the line where there's been this pretty much consistent kind of overage there, right? And by, again, having some direct kind of supervision of that from the Board of Estimates and Contracts, I think will help us to, one, get ahead of it if there is a department that's going awry, and to be able to try to really understand what's happening. And then two, be able to make sure that we have the right policies and procedures in place for the assignment allocation and then the actual payouts of it, right? So I want to throw that out as a discussion just quickly, but I'm going to kind of I'm putting some stuff to paper to kind of get out to the mayor and to the council president for review and suggestion. But in my quick kind of really analysis of it and trying to pull some of that out, it could be of some advantage to us in what we are going to have to propose in the next day or so.
Absolutely. We definitely I heard the comments last night, especially again about the overtime. One of the residents spoke to the fact that, okay, well, if you're understaffed, then you're going to have overtime. And they were concerned, was that something that was going to happen in the police department? Well, what we've done is we have not tried to cut police in the past few years. The challenge is that people are not coming forward to apply to be police. And for years, we could have just left those numbers in the budget to use as kind of fluff and cushion, right? But we wanted to make sure that we weren't charging the residents for something that we weren't going to use. Then secondly, we looked at the fire department, which has much higher overtime. And just this year, earlier this year, we made it the first adjustment to fire department staffing. I believe someone said since 1957. And that was, we added firefighters, entry-level firefighters, to increase that number because we have firefighters who are in the process of retirement. We have, and when they're retiring and they're using out their days, then whoever is working for them, they're being paid as they stay home, and other people are being paid time and a half as they take their place. Then you're holding on to firefighters because you don't have enough people to work the truck. You're holding on to firefighters. And then you have lots of overtime. I believe we did an analysis where we said there was a lot of overtime in the lieutenant's area.
Well, yeah, I was,
Right.
say that,
So-
some of that just to be clear for the public understands that actual decision, while later in the year, right around the cusp of us also, announcing about the cash flow issue, came out of that there was this analysis that
Analysis
was
done.
done between the comptroller's office and the fire department
Mhm.
to make sure to look at it and say, here's where the problems are.
Mhm.
So let's try to fix this problem and not wait until the next year to do it. Let's start it now. So,
And so, as we know that there are people retiring, as we know that when people are retiring from the firefighter level and that leaves vacancies, but we also have people retiring from lieutenant levels. And so when you have to pay overtime at the lieutenant level, you're paying overtime at a much higher rate. And when you have to hold people in the firefighter line because you're short in the firefighter line and you can't move people up to lieutenants. So for the first time, I believe in, definitely over 50 years, we've increased the number of firemen. And we have people in the academy. I believe we're going to have a major promotion for and fill in our lieutenant ranks, right? So that we're not operating on overtime, but we're operating on regular time, straight time, and we have enough people to cover shifts. For a few years, the fire department, going back to me being in this position prior to 2020, there was academies that were missed. And so we were short when we had people retiring. In 2020, when I came on and COVID hit, we didn't have an academy. In 2021, 2022, when the list ran out, and we couldn't get it extended, even though COVID caused us not to be able to have academies, the fire department continued to become shorter and shorter staffed. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to meet the mandatory minimum staffing requirements as required by federal guidelines, right? And so just to meet staffing, minimum staffing, overtime was always required. So I believe with the analysis that was done, with the moves that we made earlier this year, with those individuals who, the extra academy group kind of that we had to go in back in, was that September? Back in September, and they're about to graduate in about 6 weeks. That will definitely help. And then we're doing a promotion, I believe, on December 12th, which will fill up our ranks of the lieutenants. And I even pushed back. I was like, hold on. Why can't we just wait and promote them in January? Why do we have to promote them right now? And it was like, it's the holidays. People are going on vacation and a whole bunch of overtime can accrue, especially in that lieutenant position. So, we definitely have been doing staffing analyses. In the police department, even they've, kind of reorganized some things and done reassignments within the police department that is helping with that overtime, but then also to make sure that they have units and they have scheduling patterns that can cover some of the shortages, but not necessarily with overtime. So we will continue to do deep dives and to look at more opportunities for efficiencies. I know You did mention that you were looking at, and this is something we're doing, is looking at, can we offer in the new year, depending on the financial advisors and whatever type of packages we can pull together, and if we can pay for that through a ban or something, opportunities for people to retire and do some of those buyouts. So that brings down some of the top pay, or of people who are kind of at end of career stage. And it can make the department and the city work a little bit more efficiently. So I know that there are many things that you're looking at, we're looking at, and trying to find ways to bring down staffing costs. As much as people think that we might be overstaffed, one thing Commissioner Bush constantly tells me is 15, 20 years ago, the DPW staff is twice the size that it is now. The city has grown in the last 20 years, and we have, let's say, 55 to 60% of the staff. Um, how can we make it work, and how can we continue to make adjustments and efficiencies in staff without eliminating the services that we need to provide in the city?
Yeah, I think that, again, so I think that a lot of it is around efficiency, right? And so the reason I guess I'm posing that we do the allocations and the monitoring of overtime differently, because we've been doing some stuff, but I think that given the historic trending around it, it would make better sense for us to be able to kind of really understand it, right?
Oh,
And so
no
I think
disagreement.
No, I didn't say what's right. I just want to make sure that,
The public.
everybody understands that what I'm attempting to do. You're never going to change if something overnight, and we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of this overnight, right? We didn't lose. We didn't decline. Honestly, let me say it. Don't say it that way. We didn't decline. What is it? Almost $57 million in fund balance overnight. That happened over a span of several years between, right, 16 and 20, right? And we are going to see what 21 through 25 brings as to how it either levels, bounces back or not. The other thing I think, because you brought this up around budgeting and how budgeting works, and I had this conversation this morning with a constituent or taxpayer about the budget and how municipal financing is fund accounting. And so when you fund accounting, you're looking at different pockets at one time, even though they have interconnectivity to it. So we had this discussion around at the town hall meeting around the long-term debt of the city, right? And it being a few $1 million, right? And I think I said this the other day when I was being interviewed by someone, right? That the long-term debt has to be looked at a little differently. First of all, we're not an anomaly to it. We're not out of whack with the long-term debt in comparison to those that are even around us, right? So Mount Vernon's long-term debt again was a few $100,000, and we keep talking about how much that was. When we look at Yonkers is 3.4 billion. The OPEB liabilities. New Rochelle, 382 million. White Plains, 571 million. And Peekskill, right, 177 million. And on top of that is that 90 percent of our long-term obligations are related to post-retirement health obligations, which is about 76% of that. And then actually New York State pension, which is 16% of that. We can't legally fund the retirement health obligation. There's no legal way to fund it, right? At all. And as it pertains to the pension, that's administered by the state. So we roughly look at about 8% of that long-term liability is something that we could technically manage and deal with from the standpoint of budgeting. Because it was brought up as a part of the discussion around how we planning to deal with it and how we're going to budget for it, right? And we'll do an even more in-depth discussion around this later on. But I think that's one thing. The other thing that you brought up earlier was about planning for fire and police. And fire and police both also, as we've learned, based upon academies, people applying and people going to academies. And so based upon what is considered to be coming up is how we then decide how many positions we want to actually put into the budget. So somebody said that we should have, I forget what the number was, 200 and some odd police or something like that. What was the number?
We haven't budgeted for that number in 5 years.
I understand, but let's just use that. Let's just use it, right? 200 and whatever it is, how many police we're supposed to have. And let's just say that was true. Right? And then we got 60 some odd now. But so then we have to 160, right? Something, right? We have to best guesstimate that we would be able to get 40 people in an academy
In June.
in January. Oh, no, in January to include the salaries at level 1 for those 40 people. So we put 40 salaries into the budget at the $40,000 mark, right? You do the math. That's how much we're adding into the budget that we don't have any reasonable, right, estimate that we're going to have 40 people come January 1. So what we do is we do kind of the mathematics around it and figure out, well, how do we justify, how many do we think we're going to have and when are we going to have them? So when we look at the budget that even presented, the budget has, yes, firefighters that are in the budget for January, a certain number. And then it has half the salary allocated for firefighters that we anticipate will come in June or July, because that's responsibly budgeting for it in that year, right? Rather than overtax the taxpayers for the full salaries of it, right? So it's not that the budgetary philosophy is that we don't want to increase the number of firefighters, don't want to increase the number of police officers. We want to do it, but we want to do it responsibly, right? Right? And for years, previously we had carried numbers in which we knew academy was not going to come up. We weren't going to be able to get people, all right, in because there's a test that has to happen. You got to coordinate with civil service, agility tests, and all of that. Mm-hmm. So there's a number of things that are happening around it. And I'm spending time today because I listened very carefully yesterday, right, as to what the people were saying. And some of it was just the fact that people don't quite understand how this works. And people don't feel as if we spent a lot of time explaining how this kind of works, right, in this. And so those are the kinds of things that we're doing. And the reason why, again, I brought out the whole austerity budget thing is because I think it also demonstrates to the public, one, that we are putting a more watchful eye on those very areas that they complained about. And two, it also is information gathering. Because for the year, we can then receive the information and be able to better budget in 2027 based upon the information that we have. So, and with that, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox today. I just wanted to kind of, bring it out because we left that hearing yesterday and I went home and I called the mayor, right? And the mayor and I stayed on a Zoom,
Zoom.
looking at this budget, trying to figure out what needs to happen. It to the point where I even said, you know what, you too tired, go to bed. And I kept even looking at some places until I went to bed. And then this morning said, here, let's look at this and let's continue to look at this.
But also, let's be clear, this is something we've been doing for the past 2 months.
Well, that's true.
Right? It's not like last night is the first night we stayed up burning the midnight oil, looking at the budget, looking for where we could cut, looking for where there could be efficiency, savings, and all of these things. And I just wanted to say that because,
Yeah, no,
you have people who are, very frustrated and they'd be like, oh, so it took last night for y'all to look at the budget. No, we've been
No.
looking at the budget. We've been staying here late. We have been here early. We have been here on weekends. We have missed all types of time with our family over the past few months, looking and understanding that there had to be, adjustments made and savings made. And so you pay taxes, I pay taxes, you pay taxes, and no one wants to raise taxes. And the last thing I'll say, because you finished with your soapbox, what I did not include in the presentation this year, and I have traditionally included it in previous years, is that the city has always come in at really around, a 5% increase. The only way that didn't manifest itself in the taxes is because there was a fund balance. And so when you're able to use 2 million, 3 million, $4 million from a fund balance that exists, then you're able to keep the tax rates low. When you are operating on cash, and when you have an increase because of union contracts or increase because of capital repairs and capital purchases that have to be made, right? There's nowhere for us to take from that. And so it makes it much more challenging to budget. Not irresponsible budgeting. It's far more challenging than when you have reserves that you can pull from and plug in, right? And so I think one year they might have used about $6 million and they're going reserve. That would have easily been a 15% increase that didn't manifest itself because, again, of reserves. So we are doing everything possible, operating on a cash basis, for the lack of a better word. Dealing with a zero-based budget that doesn't have any reserves for us to utilize to do the operations of the city. And yes, we do have a new fleet of vehicles because the city did not purchase vehicles for 20 years, which resulted in garbage trucks crashing into people's houses, which caused the city to be sued, which caused us to have to go borrow garbage trucks from Yonkers in New York City, not because somebody had done something to sabotage them, but because we hadn't purchased garbage trucks in 25 years. And yes, we absolutely have wonderful sewer trucks now at no cost to the taxpayer in the city of Mount Vernon, because yes, we went and we spoke to the governor and her team, and through the Environmental Facilities Corporation, we received a $150 million grant that not only is addressing the repairs and the upgrades of our sewer and our stormwater system, but they also allowed us to go out and utilize that money to get better sewer trucks and flusher trucks so that we would not have to call to Massachusetts and Rhode Island in the middle of a backup and have to wait 4 or 5 hours for a truck to come down here and the county of Westchester have to pay it, right? And so we didn't start from zero in this administration. We started from kind of like sub-level 10. And while it may not seem like the city has improved over the years, it's because we've just had to get to zero, right? And so no one has to necessarily appreciate it, but it's not something we can ignore. And while a lot of people are not necessarily tapped into the day-to-day of what happens to in government, and I understand that and I respect that, accurate information is important to have. Accurate information is important to have. And I want to also finally, and this is the last thing that I'll say, and I will never take it back because I believed it then and I believe it, that it would have been the best move for this city. In January of 2021, with the support of my state assemblyman and my state senator, I put in a request for the state comptroller's office to come and assign Mount Vernon a monitor. And it wasn't about Deborah, Jess. It was because I believed that the fiscal condition of the city was so deep and so challenging, right? That people wouldn't believe us. And so when you're negotiating union contracts and when you're trying to pay accounts payables and things of that nature and make settlements with people, that it would have taken someone from outside the city, an outside verifier, to really confirm some of what we're saying. And I've watched people for years try and get out of financial challenges, white knuckling it, right? Instead of using some tools and resources that are available to us. And I knew that by the time you got in the office, and this was before I think you'd even really decided to run, or right around that time, that when we got into the finance office and finally saw the books, that we weren't just going to see cancer at stage 1, that we could see cancer at stage 3 or 4, and that it would be hard to recover from. And so, and even when you got in the office and we asked the state comptroller for, I don't think it was a monitor at that time, it was some type of fiscal oversight board,
Yeah, financial,
financial oversight board, the state comptroller came back and said that they wouldn't be able to do it, right? So it's not like we're sitting here trying to take money and run off with it. I think we have been very transparent. We've been transparent with those who oversee us at the state and have welcomed them in to look at the books and look at and see whatever their concerns were and give us advice. We have not tried to run from any of that. So I am unmoved by the, oh, you're corrupt, right? Because corrupt people you can't heal what you hide. And what I knew is that there were deep fiscal issues in the city, and that it was going to take more than goodwill and hard work to turn those things around. So, that's pretty much it for me. But in all of that, while it may not feel like the situation is getting better, we've come a long way and we still have a long way to go. And I thank y'all for just doing the hard work. And in our time, it may never be appreciated, but I know that I'm going to just continue to do the hard work, and we're going to continue to look for solutions, and do the best that we can. So, thank you. Council President,
I move to adjourn this meeting.
second,
roll call.
Comptroller Morton,
aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Patterson Howard.
Aye. Meeting adjourned